Lyra.
We're going in.
Why would I trust you?
Hello, welcome back to my channel. We are here reviewing episode number 5 of His Dark Materials season 2. Now I have a lot of thoughts and I don't want to go ramble on too much because this week on my channel on Thursday night starts the series Vlognica, because if you didn't know, I'm a Jew and Hanukkah starts on Thursday the 10th, and so I'm going to be putting out videos for 8 days straight starting on Thursday. So I don't want this video to be too long because I have a lot of editing in my future. Instead of what I normally do, going through my live tweet reactions, I'm going to talk to you about some of the main themes and the main sort of talking points, I guess, of this week's episode and how I felt about them and all that stuff. There's a lot to talk about and I didn't tweet that much this week, which in other weeks I've been tweeting non-stop when it comes to the episode, but I didn't this week because I was just so invested in the conversations that were being said. Just before we start, I am wearing my Chikatse t-shirt. Funny story, we had a leaky pipe and so I called my landlord to come and fix it, and he came to fix it and he was in the kitchen and we were just like having a chat, you know, small talk, and he goes, have you been watching that show on BBC, His Dark Materials? And I was stood there in this shirt like, yes I have. And then I started ranting about the morality and the deep themes that the show and the books talk about. So anyway, so Mrs. Coulter went on an incredible emotional journey this episode, and as usual, Ruth Wilson knocked it out of the park. There are layers upon layers upon layers of subtext and pain and trauma and evilness in Mrs. Coulter. She isn't one-dimensional at all. There's so many aspects to her, and it's so important that as viewers we can see them and that Ruth portrays them in a visual way to us, and she does it so perfectly. And this episode, there were so many moments where you could just see exactly what Mrs. Coulter was thinking, and that is a testament to Ruth's ability to show that. So Mrs. Coulter went on a journey, as discussed with Lord Boreal, about the ways in which women in our world can do things. They can be academics and they can be successful in a way that Mrs. Coulter was just not able to do in her world. And it was a really heartbreaking moment when she realized just how much Mary is the person that she wished she could be when she was older. And it was really sad. Now, nothing that she can do will absolve guilt for some of the terrible things that she has done, committed so far, but as a wonderful article said, I'll link it in my description, so Mrs. Coulter later on in the series is described as a cesspit for moral filth or something like that, and the quote from the article said, as we all know, a cesspit has to fill up from somewhere, and I think that is very true. Like, the showrunners and Philip Pullman are not trying to make us forgive Mrs. Coulter or side with Mrs. Coulter or even empathise with her. They're just showing us how she got to where she is, and I think it's rather interesting. And cesspits fill up somehow. They don't just magically appear. So yeah, I thought it was wonderful, and we've been building on Mrs. Coulter's character and discovering her layers since that episode with Lee, and I just think it's wonderful because it's something that we didn't get in the book because we were so much more focused on what Lyra was doing and what Mary was doing that we didn't see Mrs. Coulter and why she is the way she is, and we always viewed her through Lyra's lens, and Lyra's lens is obviously a very particular lens. And Mrs. Coulter is one of the greatest female characters in fiction because she is so complex and so complicated, and I just can't think of another character that is so complex in fiction. I just can't think of one. So yeah, Mrs. Coulter and Ruth Wilson is doing an amazing job at playing her. The relationship that's going with Boreal and book readers, we know where that's going, and they're both doing it so well. They're both, the acting this episode was just so good. Now, let's talk about Will and Lyra. So we can see that their relationship is also moving on. They're getting closer and they're growing to understand each other more. And Lyra, who is a very reserved and keeps her feelings away from other people, she's starting to open up to Will about what she's been through, and honestly it was heartbreaking. And the mention of Mark Costa and Lee Scoresby broke my heart, but also broke my heart because she didn't mention For Decorum, and I love For Decorum. And I also love that we are seeing Mary's journey, and I think we're going to see a little bit more of her journey this season, and it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. The one thing though that I felt a bit robbed of, that in the book, after she has the conversation with the shadow particles, she actually is the one who destroys the equipment because she doesn't want anyone to get their hands on it. And it's just a more emotional and heart-wrenching choice that Mary decides to do that, because that is her life's work. And the stakes are a little bit higher when Mary actually destroys the cave of her own, like, choice. Well, not so choice, but like she is the one who destroys it, and having the cave sort of self-combust felt like a little bit of a cop-out to me. And I don't know why the cave shut itself off. Why did Zephania do that? Why couldn't Mary have smashed the machine up? Because it just gives a little bit more depth into the choices that Mary is having. I don't know about that. Yeah, that just miffed me off a little bit. That was the like one little naggly thing from this episode, that it miffed me off that Mary didn't destroy it herself. But having Mary and Mrs. Coulter meet, which again, Mrs. Coulter is just meeting all these characters that she didn't meet in the book. And I think it's rather interesting because all these characters are parental-ish figures for Lyra in the series, and to see Mrs. Coulter interacting with these characters that have that bond with Lyra that Lyra wants to have is very interesting, and I like what they're showing us by doing it. And I'm kind of a bit mad that Philip Pullman didn't think to show us that, because it doesn't take away from the plot or where we're going with the plot to have Mrs. Coulter meet these characters, and it was wonderful. And I just liked it a lot. I like seeing Mrs. Coulter in our world and doing things. But the one thing that I thought was absolutely hilarious was having the monkey like seatbelted into the car. And just imagine you're driving around Oxford, you stop at a red light, you look at the car next to you, and in the back seat there is a monkey strapped in, a full ass golden monkey seat belted into the car. Like, surely you'd be like, what the actual fuck? Because like clearly she knows that she can't be walking around with her monkey just randomly. Like, she locks him in that room, which was a heartbreaking scene, and all those like chittery chattery noises that he was making when he was locked in there, absolutely horrible. So like, why was he just there like strapped into the car like that? I just found it really sweet, but also like, just imagine like seeing that and being like, why is there a monkey in that car? Like, that's far more conspicuous than how she was dressed. I loved seeing Will and Lyra talk about their mothers together. Now, I don't remember an express conversation about mothers between them. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. If it did, let me know. But I did think it was heart-wrenching. This episode was emotional on many fronts. I forgot to mention the Tullio scene, which is the most heartbreaking thing, seeing Angelica and Paola with Tullio. It's so sad, and the guilt that Will carries for that throughout the series is really sad too. But as Lyra said, they had to do it, and Tullio was going to kill them. Okay, I'm just going to do a few little quips that I wrote. So first of all, I want Boyle to be my interior designer because he has some style. I really like also how they're shaping Father McPhail's character arc, that in the end book we see the end of it and we don't get to see the middle or even the beginning of his character, and I think it's rather interesting how they're showing that to us. I think it just shows us that it shows book fans that they know where this show is going, and for fans who've had a really poor adaptation, I've said it a lot, but for fans who've had a really poor adaptation, it just means a lot to have them, you know, actually care about where it's going. The guy, Father Graves, with the spider demon, I usually love spiders, but that spider demon is giving me bad vibe. We also had one of my favourite shots from the original trailer this episode, like Will in the doorway getting ready to like go on the heist. I just thought it was magnificent. It was a really great episode. I loved it a lot, and I don't really have very much to say any more than that. I think this episode was so focused on character and, oh, how could I forget the parallel between Mrs. Coulter using the monkey to attack Pan and then Wolverine Pan attacking the monkey was cinematic genius. And I liked how they like showed us that, like they were like, remember this, remember this. So that is the end of this week's video. Do stick around and pop back in on Thursday because that will be the start of Vlognica. I will also be doing my review of episode 6 next week, so don't miss that. If you like His Dark Materials, if you like university videos, if you like body positivity videos, if you like videos about being Jewish, stick around, subscribe and comment down below what you thought of this episode, and thanks for being faithful and thanks for watching. Mwah.